we are live. Hello everyone, welcome to another Strange Loop game stream here. Trying to stick these to Fridays. With us here tonight we have John, which is our civics architect and our CEO and mastermind of Eco.
Hey everybody. Good to hop on the stream. Usually you guys do an awesome job of it, so nice to be a guest on here.
Yeah, and today we have a very exciting subject, something that's been cooking for a long time, something that I think the entire team has been super eager to be working on and getting out and present to everyone, and that is settlements. It's crazy. It's been a long time. And
I remember first writing about this feature probably like over a year ago.
Yeah, I know we had some dev blogs back in 2020, 2021 where when it was first teased in actuality and kind of breaking it down a little bit more. But now it's actually here. We actually have it. Tangible. It's interactable. So I think without further ado, we'll just kind of skip through it. Do you want to run through things first, or do you want me to?
Yeah, sure. We can just kind of switch to some game footage, and I'll talk about the general idea. And why don't you just kind of show the different buildings off?
Yep. Switching over to your screen share first, and then we'll do.
Okay.
A bit on my end.
So the idea with settlements is that currently in Eco, in the released version, you have like one settlement that everybody's a part of. You create a court and like laws apply to everything. You have one government for the whole world. And this change is going to completely change that, so that now you can have many governments, and you kind of grow them from the ground up. So you have if you have a few people who've started their own little homesteads around, they can form together into a town. And now that town is a little government that can have its own laws, that can have its own like taxes and regulations and districts, and all the civic stuff that's in Eco can be separated into these individual settlements. So from there, you can step it up as well. So the next layer up would be countries. So you could take multiple towns and form them into a country. And that's a really interesting process, because you have to get agreement from kind of both parties about what the government should be. You're creating the constitution together. So it's really like this like political event in order to form a country. And that will give you a lot of, upgrades as well. You'll have a much bigger influence range in which your laws will apply. You can probably unlock some new objects or something will do. But basically you have these multiple tiers. So you would have countries can contain multiple towns contain citizens. And so then you get like jurisdiction. Like you might have a country law and a town law that maybe they conflict, and you have to decide which one takes precedence. There's some kind of extra complexities to navigate and figure out. But I think the end result is going to be that it's going to be a lot more people involved in the politics, because there's going to be basically local politics where you're creating civics for your little town. And then that scales up into the global politics where you have countries. And there's also a level above that called federations. So you can form multiple countries into a federation, which is kind of like a United Nations structure. So you can imagine like the creation of that would be like a massive event akin to like stopping the meteor, being able to organize hundreds of people from, dozens of countries and hundreds of towns maybe to form this United Nations would be quite an achievement.
Yeah, and I think as you were talking about influence and kind of the different tiers of legislation, one of the things that will change is how global laws apply, since you will have your own regionalized laws. This will mean that you'll only have sort of your bare bone near environment to where you're building and where you're operating, and you're going to have to kind of get along with other peoples to form these bigger tier settlements, and leading up to the federation that is more of a global encompassing rather than right now where you can just create you create a constitution, you apply it, and all laws affect everyone equally.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, so laws are no longer universal. They have an influence range.
yeah, and I think a lot of people are gonna be both terrified, but also I think they might enjoy being able to legislate for their own little habitat area versus having these superimposed ones, especially if there's very unique personal laws that you might want to just apply to your area, but you don't want, you know, some random guy across the world deciding if someone is allowed to drop tailings on your property.
Yeah, exactly. So it really creates kind of a building up effect, you know, whereas first it's like everything's local, and then the global impact and like people on the other side of the world start to have an impact on how things are being run. So it'd be a really nice progression, I think.
Yeah. We can probably show off some of the
Should we
new.
look at a town hall?
Yeah, I think you can add into.
Let's see which one do you want to show? I'll meet you there.
Right now I'm trying to connect.
Lighthouse one.
Yeah, maybe it's not the most gracious one, but it is a good example on if it shows up. We have had some technical difficulties during the last kind of hours and day of this setting up the stream, so things are a little bit more jumpy than usual because we have a lot of changes that's being daily applied to settlements and kind of improvements. So
Yeah,
as can tell by the
we're still working hard on Eco 10, so it's every day there's new stuff to fix, but yeah, it's getting closer.
Yes, we have a your starting session there. You can probably, can you open that up? I think you might be able to open that up. Yeah.
So this is the town foundation object. So the way it would work is you would start your little homestead, and eventually you would be able to construct one of these town foundations. And once you drop one of these, you can get started on a path to creating a town with other people. So you'll see in the status, it has a certain number of requirements. I just realized I had my screen fader on. Let me turn that off. So it has a normal room requirements. So it has to have, a decent building. But you also have these new settlements requirements. So it needs to have a certain number of citizens. This settlement is already founded, so it only needs one citizen to keep being active, but you need two to start it, to found it. And it needs a certain culture value. So culture is also a brand new system that we're adding for Eco 10 that we're going to really expand in the future. But it's the idea that you can add culture to settlements that will then increase their influence and push against neighboring settlements for like border disputes, and also just kind of give you like cachet and like achievements and other interesting stuff we want to do with it. So we're introducing a couple ways to get culture right now, but it's going to be something we keep expanding. So so you put this down, and then you have to meet the requirements where you have to get a certain number of citizens. So at that point, you would go, okay, I want to add citizens to this town. So you would go and invite people. If you're the mayor, you can invite people. Oh, looks like I'm already a member of this other town, so I won't go in there. And then they can choose to join you or not, basically. And people can also apply to it as well.
Yeah.
So once you get enough people on this roster for like an unfounded town, then you can actually found it. I should probably show the one that's not founded yet. Let me fly over to that one.
Yeah, I did some. I've done some custom settings just to kind of remove some of those limitations.
Yeah.
Where we have something that the server side can decide whether or not, like how much culture each foundation is going to be giving you, how much requirements you have over. Say how much culture the town needs, so you can have a town foundation or a country foundation or whichever step where just having the foundation isn't enough to form the town. You need to have additional furniture or cultural additions in terms of housing value. which is also supported by regular furniture. So you'll have culture as kind of a new room designator, and that is only possible on a property type of kind of jumping ahead. One of the things that we added with the culture system and with settlements that we kind of needed to differentiate between someone's personal property and someone's governmental property or a public property was adding a new property system for new types of properties or deeds, where you have a cultural one, which is a public property and is not subject to housing bonus. So you can't have a cultural property by living on top of the city hall, because that's not a residential type. And I believe that button is not really showing up at the moment with one of the latest fixes to another area. But the foundation placement itself has its own deed type, and once I think did you found that one, or is that's still pending, right?
Which one?
The one that you're looking at right now.
Oh, the property.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a drop down in there on the deed selection,
which
which
missing right now. It's a bug, but you can change what type of property you have if you want it to be a residence or a cultural property. And a cultural property will contribute culture.
Yeah, so if you click the resident tab in the middle there, it'll show you if you have a residential property, or if you don't have a residential property, you won't be able to interact and rent it out in the same manner, or in the same usual kind of give you housing bonus and be beneficial to your XP.
Yep. So another new type of property that we're introducing, which when you place a town deed or a town foundation down, it kind of creates that by default. So yeah, let me show you how these things get founded. So I invited you as a citizen here, Jens, if you want to come over and accept my invite.
I'm trying to get back in. I think it's not really letting me connect again. But you should be able to do it without me, because I removed the limitation to, or dropped down the limitation to 1.
Sure.
So the invite system is basically working the same way you do with property types, or when you invite a resident, where you send an invite request, or someone can come to you and apply for it. Oh, there we go. Never mind. It let me in now, and now I see all the objects here, which I wanted to. Nice. I think I can. Let's switch in between here for a second. Let me do that, and let me enabling it on my end. So I can just show off how this is looking. So when you get an invite, you have a notification that pops up similar to the resident invite, where it says you've been invited to become a citizen of whichever the settlement is, and each settlement has its own kind of tier icon for like bronze, silver, gold, depending on if it's a town, a nation, or a federation. And then it has the regular property types for generic civics, which shows you how much culture it has, how much claimed plots it has, how much its general influence is. And influence is the area of impact the laws and everything regarding to this area has. So if I go in here now, then I can open this up, and I can go into citizen, and you see that I'm set as an invited citizen, and I can accept the invitation. And I'm currently a citizen of Industrial Otter, which is a settlement off to the north. And then I can choose to abandon that and become a citizen of this new settlement. If I do that, I leave this other town, and I am now part of John's place. So
great. Welcome to the party. So yeah, you want to switch back to me? I'll show some other stuff here. So you can see on the foundation page, just kind of guides you along about the steps for how to found this town. Requirements are met, and this town can be founded after the Constitution is ratified. See the Constitution tab. So the Constitution is the startings of your government. It defines how your government works. and you will edit this and define like what's this the town constitution going to be, how do people make decisions, how are laws created, all that good stuff. And then you get it approved by everybody in an election, and then you can found the town. So this is the default constitution, John K. Tropolis Constitution. Citizens of John K. Tropolis may propose an election of type John K. Tropolis. So the default is that any civic thing is handled with an election. But maybe we want to change that. Maybe we want to say that, you know, because it's John K. Tropolis, John K. has executive privilege. So John K. may do so immediately. Everybody else may propose an election process. But maybe that's too much power. Maybe we only want it to apply to, you know, specific abilities or something. Yeah, so you could set it to apply to like just laws or to just, you know, just election processes or whatever you want. Or you could set up government offices, government positions. So everything, all the features you get in the current eco government are now duplicated across these different towns. So let's change that back and start an election. Got an achievement. Oh, we got a new achievement system in here too, so you'll start seeing these pop up. And here we go. Let's start the election.
Well, I'll fast track the election since.
Yep. Do you agree, Jens?
I totally agree. It sounds like an amazing plan.
Awesome.
We'll just pass that through an admin command quickly too.
So there we go. The ratification election has passed, and it can now be founded at any time. So before I found it, I'll show you how the influence works. So here in the mini-map, we now have this additional world layer type, which is settlements. And here you can see influence of settlements. So we have this kind of striped texture that shows them. And we have right now, there's 2 established towns. There's the Lighthouse Town, and there is the Industrial Otter Town. And they're kind of far apart, and they're affecting their, this radius is how big their laws apply. So this actually will get extended as you build cultural buildings like museums and things, which we'll probably have a separate demo for that. But yeah, so culture is what determines your boundaries. You can actually kind of have border wars where you're, you know, racing to get more culture than another town in order to like cover a certain area. So then you see my little nascent town, my little baby town here, which is just a tiny little plot that just covers its property because it's not properly founded yet. So one thing that's tricky to learn is the difference between influence and property. So property are claimed plots. You know, you can have lots of different claimed plots in a town, and they don't cover all of the influence of the town. Whereas influence is a much wider thing. And this just determines where laws apply, where the influence of the town is, and it's a different kind of shade. So that's how we try to differentiate that. So even though there's only like one claimed plot for this town, it has a big influence itself. So we want to take my little baby town here and found it, and that will give it a lot more power and influence. Since we did all the steps, John K. Tropolis is now founded. It was founded by Iceforge and John K., and you get this cool plaque of like who were the founding citizens, when did it happen. There's going to be like a reveal event where there'll be like a curtain that comes off. We'll show that on another object. So this is the kind of big event where you get the whole town together and you like do it together, and now you have this cool new thing. But now if we go back to our settlement view, we can see that there's quite a big influence now for this because it's been founded. And you can see that it's starting to butt up against the other nearby towns. So there's some border conflicts here. So maybe this town is going to decide, hey, these are supposed to be under our influence. We're going to build like a cultural thing here to kind of push the influence out more. So it introduces a little bit more conflict in the game in terms of like control of things, which, you know, kind of goes to the theme of like, you're all in this together. You're all trying to stop the meteor, but you're going to get in these little like low-level spats about stuff that could potentially rise to the level of making your society fail, which I just love, is like how do you're competing and you're cooperating at the same time.
Yeah,
So definitely.
and I think we
Go ahead.
can, if you want to switch over to 2D map, might be a little bit easier to see. You can tell that the radius for the lighthouse town versus the Johnstown is slightly smaller. And that is because the cultural value, as with any type of housing value, is affected by the building material you have it in. And this is something that's kind of subject to balance changes, and kind of we're trying to find a good place where a town is big enough when it first starts, yet has the prospects of growing, but we also don't want a single town to cover the whole map, but that's on kind of indefinitely growth. So these are also, even if you have the same culture as another town, you might not have it built in the same material, so you kind of always have to keep upgrading if you want to keep competing and not get pushed out. And on the subject of the influence, we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One of them being if you can live inside a town that you're not a citizen of, and I think we have an example of that inside the Industrial Otter. You can tell that there is a small property there in the lower left corner of the blue one.
Check it out. Oh, these ones here.
Yeah, where it's breaking the influence because the influence is not affecting that one.
Yeah, so what you see here, these are homesteads where people have just set up. So every player gets a new object called a homestead claim. And you can start a claim that is not a part of any town. You only get one of these claims, one of these deeds. You can have lots of plots on it, but you can't have multiple like previously. So property is going to have a lot of changes too. So here what we see is someone has their homestead and they're saying, I'm not a citizen of what is this, Industrial Otter Town. I don't want any part of it. So it's actually carved out the influence around this homestead. Now, if this person here were to decide, okay, I'll become a citizen of your town, then this would become under its influence. So there'll be like convincing going on by this town of like, hey, why don't you join us? We'll give you this and this, or like, we'll change the constitution to suit how you want to, like, we'll give you some government powers or something. So all kinds of interesting like political negotiations with your neighbors that can happen as you try to build up these structures, and really interested to see how that goes down. But to your question about can you live in a area without being a citizen, yeah, you can. You can just have a regular plot with a residence on it, and it doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. But the town itself might set up rules that require certain things about citizens. It might make a law, for example, that you can only claim land if you're a citizen. So in that case, you would have to be a citizen, but that's something that they like individually form in their government. Or maybe citizens pay in, less tax or something, or there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Citizens can have less import fees, or non-citizens have to pay like a import fee. So you'll get these really interesting interactions between these different locales.
Can you leave town citizenships at any time as an individual player? Yeah. I think
that's one thing I was kind of debating, but I think that, you have the right to leave at any time. You can also kick people out. So here's some of the civic actions. We don't have the icons for these yet, but these are different things that actions that town can take. One of them is revoke citizenship. Other ones like change the name, join a settlement. So this is if you want a town to become a country, it would go through this process. Or you can secede from a country as well. And how these take effect depends on the Constitution. So the Constitution we've set, John K. Tropolis, I could do this immediately if I wanted to, or somebody else could propose an election to do them. So however your town government is defined about how to make decisions determines how you'll be able to do these things.
Yeah, and for leaving general citizenships, I think it'll probably be, as a default kind of setting, it'll probably be something in the lines of you're not allowed to leave the settlement as long as you own property in that settlement. So you can't just, disagree with the laws and just say, nah, I don't want to be a part of this and I don't want to have these laws applied to me, because we do want to have that civic interactions of you're kind of locked to the regional government of the area you're living in, if that's what you agreed upon doing. And there's also a new window to kind of give you a little bit more oversight on these, which is probably subject to some improvements and changes on the government window on L has changed out.
Yes, now it lists, you have all the settlements, and you can see the individual government for each settlement. So we've got these 3 settlements here. You know, we can look at the different automatic kind of civic things that are set up. You know, every town starts with a default like constitution, default leader title with a random name. So I'm the sheriff of this one. So you can give particular powers to whoever holds that position, and its own election process. So along with the settlement, you kind of get a few for free, and then you can add more to that by like placing other objects. So if you put a court down, then you can start getting laws for these things. We don't have any right now, but they would apply there. We also added a new culture tab here. So this is a new feature we're adding as well, which is the idea of actually being able to conquer and annex other regions. So the idea for this is kind of, say you have like a rogue town that is just, you know, polluting up a storm, affecting the environment. It's affecting the whole world, but this town has its laws and you can't break it. So what can you do to like stop this problem? Well, you can annex it. You can take over this town. And the way to do that is through a culture war. So we don't have anything generating culture in the town setup here. But once you do, you'll start to see these progress meters fill up. So you have to have a certain number of surrounding plots. So John K. Tropolis would have to surround lighthouse plots. So it would need claimed land next to it. And it needs to have more culture than it. So it's somewhat complex process, but basically you just have to surround it and have lots of culture. And then the tooltips here explain all the values of how that happens. So you got to have, you know, more than 5% of its empty plots are surrounded in order to annex it. And, you know, if you increase that number, then you'll reduce the amount of culture you need to capture it. And then the culture is, you know, you need this much more culture, 150% more, and at least 20 absolute higher. So 50 culture now, but depending on how much it's surrounded, that might be less. So basically, you'll start to see these, like, here's the risk that John K. Tropolis can annex Lighthouse. Here's the risk that Lighthouse can annex John K. Tropolis. And it really just depends on what the different values are here. And once that is achieved, you can actually just merge the towns together. Separately from that, countries can also annex towns, which is a little different because then the town would just become another member town. We'll show that later. But yeah, so first kind of implementation of like wars and conflict in Eco, kind of explicitly. You know, we don't have violence in the game. I don't think that really kind of fits the purpose right now, but these culture wars should make for some interesting kind of battles and conflicts between people.
Yeah, and gods do need to be approved to join a town. Yes, because it's the town foundation is kind of something that you craft yourself, you place it down, and it has kind of a proprietary value to the person who made it, which is like the main founder of the object, which then goes through the process of approving people that comes in. But there are options to that. So that's just kind of the default stock setting for it. And then we have...
Do you want to throw down the immigration desk? Can you give yourself one?
It's having some struggles generating, but I think I can just spawn one if I just force spawn it here where it doesn't break everything. So we have 2 different types of new objects to kind of handle these relations. One of them is the immigration desk.
Is that gonna spawn a big building with it too?
Yeah, but we're hang on, we're fine. Behind the you sneak up.
Spawn it?
Yeah, it's behind the building you're at. Nice little wooden hewn building.
Oh, there we go. So here's our little immigration office. So yeah, this is a new object we've made that allows you to define how immigration works. it doesn't have a settlement at this spot.
It's not a part of it.
Okay. Why don't you give ownership to me? And since I think I would become the citizen, we might need to fix something there.
I
But
can
yeah, so
give
this
it.
ideally this.
I wonder if I can give it over to your title. And then we run a civics.
Yeah, it looks like the property is not associating with.
I think it's because it's a command spawned property. I was hoping to be able to just. It really doesn't like all placement, but nuke the nuke the property.
Okay.
So if you just delete the property, that should eliminate it and just put it down under the influence again.
What's the command for that? Unclaim.
You can just open up the deed and hit delete, and that should rip everything out.
Okay.
Which is also a nifty thing for. Just delete the deed, and that should. Yeah, there we go. That puts it under.
Okay.
But is it wanting to actually react and realize it, or we're like we're saying we're having some technical difficulties at.
Yeah, it's all in progress and being developed, so it's not going to be the easiest to demo right now. But what I can show is, let me show the immigration, the default one. So we'll go back into here.
Well, it has a default immigration.
Yeah, so I can just go onto the tooltip here, and you can see here's all the different parts of John K. Tropolis, and it has this default immigration policy. So this defines how people are allowed to get into your town. So whether or not you allow applicants at all, can people apply? What are the requirements for a new citizen? You can actually set requirements to say they need to have this much wealth, or they need to have this skill set, or whatever type of people you want to join your town. You can decide who approves that, which right now is the leader position. Requirements for continued citizenship, and how long before they're removed if they stop meeting those. And then we have this feature to allow brand new people to instantly join. So this is one, we added a new system for initial spawn point selection. We could demo that as well. But basically what this does is when a new player joins the game, instead of just starting at a single spot, they're going to be given an option of a few different spots. And there'll be spots that are just like random spots in the wilderness, but then there'll also be settlements. So you could say, oh, I want to join this settlement straight away. So if you're allowing brand new people to join, then they could just pop right in the instant they join, and they, you could give them some special benefits or something to kind of welcome them to your settlement. And then you can write a little advertisement here. So when you write this, it will display it to players of like why you should join this town when they enter a new town. So it would be a really great way for people to get connected quickly to a community when they get into eco. Actually, maybe I can show that. Let me see if initial spawn is here. Can't remember what that command is. Something's wrong with commands, isn't it?
It is being a bit funky right now. But on that, I think I can hop over into my the server GUI for a second. Got it on my end, or okay. Well, not the initial spawn thing, but. So some of the things that we are adding in terms of controlling this from an admin perspective, or from just users that are looking to change out how their world is interacted with, we have these new configurations which is under gameplay, and these are containing some of these changes. So one of them being reputation, and one of them being this initial spawn. These tabs will likely be kind of changed out a little bit to be a bit more easily navigatable. And this will have a lot of new properties, but right now it only has minutes between updates, which is how often it checks for valid spawn locations in the world. So it checks for if there's trees nearby, if there's food nearby, stuff that a new player would need to be able to kind of kick off doing things in the world. And then you also have it's combining and changing out like when you have a large volume of spawn points inside the same cluster, to not block off the entire map with all these little markers that hopefully show up here. It kind of just clamps them together and bundles them as singular points. So this will also contain properties for which coordinates, as admins are probably used to. I think they're still in here. This one here. So where it used to use exact spawn location and what the spawn criteria are, as well as which coordinates if you want to have a set fixed position. And all of these properties are going to be moved over into this initial spawn, so they'll be a bit more easily readable and kind of tweakable.
If you want to switch to me, I got it up here finally.
Yeah. Do that. So this is how the initial spawn looks when you come in on the map.
Yeah, so now as soon as when you join as a brand new player, you'll get to have these kind of different options that you choose. So you want to start near a forest, you can start near a forest. I'll kind of tell you, each one will say why you might want to start there. This one should not be in the water, but start near pioneers, where you start near other players. So there's all these different kind of categories, and it actually will just analyze the map and build these points dynamically over time. So over here, there's wild food, where you could start and have lots of resources.
Yeah.
So these get updated as you go, and once you place an immigration policy for your settlement, and you set up an advertisement, and you allow brand new citizens, then your town will get one of these pop-ups, and it'll say join this town, and you'll see, the players will see like why they should join your town. You'll be able to put like user pictures in there and kind of create these ways to grow your towns, grow your countries with other people.
Yeah,
and you should be able to still set manual spawn points. That's
in the config changes that are coming. So
yeah,
those are still be kind of, they'll override the default, or like the entire automatic spawn system like this. Will allow server admins to just like deny that automatic system and then have a fixed location. That fixed location will be one of these pop-ups, and that will be the only one selectable on the map on those coordinates. So they'll still kind of see the world map and interact and roam around and see where they're actually spawning, but they'll only have one selectable point in that regard.
Well, it looks like I'm stuck in initial spawn, so I'm gonna pop out and get back in.
Can switch over to transition over here. We had one more thing in the GUI, which is reputation changes. We'll have a few civic things here as well. This is kind of getting populated as we're finding things out, and probably we'll be adding a bunch of things through playtest as we get feedback from what settings or what things are missing that people want, or outright need for their customization. Reputation being a new thing that we're kind of re-rolling. So this will allow you to kind of set how much rep you can give to other players, how much rep you can remove from other players, as well as the reviews and all that. And that's one of the things that you've been working on right now. In regards to like general reputation changes and refactors to that system.
Yeah, we should do a full demo of the like new museums and cultures, because that's quite a lot there. But basically, you can now give reputation to objects, particular objects, one of which will be art that players took. So if players are using cameras, which we showed in a previous stream, they can take pictures that then they post on walls, and people can give them reputation. And the more reputation it has, the more culture it's going to provide for your settlement. So we're hoping to tie culture specifically to things players do, like special, creative stuff they do, or really interesting systems. So you won't get it just by placing objects down per se. It's more about kind of engaging and creating, beautiful things in the world, unique things that are your own self-expression.
Yeah, well, we'll probably have a couple of minor things that'll give you kind of a little bump. But we do have some new variables for explicitly saying, instead of having this gradual decreasing curve where you just add more rooms to get more points, it is we can have a finite amount of these objects set on a single property regardless of how many rooms you have. So we have a couple of new experimental kind of limitations and settings that we can roll out in terms of balance to affect this. Now that you're back in, I'll transition over to you.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the new changes we're making to property. So I'm going to pop over here into some unclaimed wilderness to show you how the new homesteads work. So now when you place down your tent, let's do that. You'll see it comes with this claim stake here. So every deed now has a claim stake associated with it. So this is my homestead claim stake, and every player gets one and only one. And this is kind of the land that you can protect and run yourself. So you can't have these placed all over the world because it doesn't, you just don't have the manpower for that. So you only get one homestead. The idea is if you want to get more claim stakes, then you create a town. So let me show you how claiming works now. So we have a new object called a claim tool. And when you use this, you can directly add plots to whatever deed you want. So if you right-click it, you can choose which property you want to apply it to. Let's apply it to John K. Property 2 here. Is this John K. Property 2? Yes. And now I can start claiming in nearby regions if I have enough plots. I think it's...
You're still inside?
I want it to be... Yeah, I'm still inside of the settlement, so there's certain rules that needs to be within a settlement. But the general idea is that now you...
you're just on the border of the settlement, yeah.
I see. Didn't go far enough. Okay, there we go. So claim a couple of these plots here.
Yeah, so...
and add those to it. So you can see now, like, it tells me at the top here how many plots I can claim. So I have 6 out of 12 plots claimed. That's how many that I start with. But you can expand that by attaching claim papers. So this is the ability to get to claim more land, and these come from settlements. So let's go get some claim papers from our settlement that we just did, assuming this is part of the settlement.
Yep. Yeah, so what happened there when he placed his homestead was that he placed it just on the border, like the absolute outlier border of the settlement influence, which means the homestead was placed inside the radius of the settlement, and you can't claim outside of the influence if you are a part of it.
Mm-hmm. So now we can see on the John K. Foundation, it actually spawns these claims. So it's going to spawn both additional claim stakes, which we'll grab, and additional property claims. And these allow you to start new claims and to power up existing claims to claim bigger areas. And you can see how that spawning happens. As more citizens join this town, more property can be claimed in its name. So right now there's 2 citizens, and for every citizen, 10 of these claim papers are spawned, and for every claim stake, 1.5 are spawned, which is basically like you get 3 people, and then you get 2 people, then you'll get 3 of them. So the bigger towns get, the more property you can claim and control, basically. So this is going to replace the current way where you get property claims when you level up your skills, and instead tie it to this idea of collaboration. You can control more land if you band together. So it's a pretty big change, and we're actually going to continue to support the old system. So people who like it how it is, you'll have that option to just continue doing it that way. But I think this will be able to make some really interesting effects in it and be more realistic as well, where you're not controlling land all over the place without settlement support.
Yeah, I do want to interject there a little bit with the old system has been reworked slightly to be more in line with settlements without the actual settlement tier restrictions. So you still get claim papers as you level up the way you did before, but you get new claim stakes which allow you to create new properties all over the world in a finite number on each character level up. So previously you could just take claim papers themselves and you could add, 100 different properties all over the world. You're now directly tied to the claim stakes quantity you have, but you still have that freedom of not having the settlements influencing or limiting you, but still kind of be on a personal progression thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if I go over here back to this homestead claim, and I can drop in those papers that I took before, and we should see, yep, we can now claim 20 more plots on this property, 32 total. So I'm basically using the power that's provided by this town to allow me to claim a much bigger area if I want. And now I can start claiming all over the place and really expand this thing. So really it becomes up to the towns to be like, how do we want to distribute these claim papers? Do we want to just divide them up evenly? Do we want to sell them? Do we want to like attribute some to other purposes? So property control becomes much more of a group activity. So let's take these off. And I'll show you. So the other thing you get, we don't have the icons for these ready yet, but you get claim stakes from settlements. So this is a settlement claim stake, which is kind of like a homestead claim stake, except it's tied to the settlement. We actually need to change the model. We have a different model for it. So say I want to start a claim right here. Oh no, this is treat. That's my homestead. There's my town. Yes, there it is. You can see it looks different. So there we go.
As people can see, if you zoom out or jump up a little bit, you can see the red shader outlier on the different properties. And when you're trying to place a foundation, you can see that it's a big red area. And that is essentially showing you that this area is outside the influence of the town, or other existing properties, which means that only areas that aren't red is where you can actually claim with that specific stake. So if you were to grab a homestead and you're not part of the town, it would not show red unless you're trying to claim in a town that prevents you from claiming in it. And
you can actually see that, like here it's showing these are all the areas I can claim. These are areas outside of the influence, so I can't claim town plots for that. These ones are already claimed, so I can't claim there. And if you look at the actual like town influence, it basically overlaps exactly with what's going on there. So yeah, an influence kind of defines where you can expand these different towns. And then, so let me open up this thing here. I need to dump all this stuff.
Don't dump the, well, yeah, you have the immigration desk now. See if you can honk that down inside the town somewhere in one of the buildings.
Just eat this cabbage, get it out of the way. So here on the settlement claim stake, now here in every claim stake, you can power it up. So I can take some of these papers that I have, maybe I just want to take like a few of them or something. Let's just put 10 on here. So now I've upped the number of plots that can be claimed on this claim to 15. And if I go over to my deed tool here, so I can right click it and choose which one I want to claim for. And I want to claim for this new John K. Tropolis deed that I just did and start claiming this land. So now this is basically a claim stake. It's not a homestead claim stake. It's associated with the town. So you could use it for like, town meeting space or industry, or you can use it like a regular deed, however you want. So you can still like give ownership of it to somebody.
Yes, these are personal ones. When you place a foundation, which is the heart of the town or the heart of the country, that gets owned by default of the mayor title, or the controlling elected title for that property, whilst claim stakes, regardless of the tiers, are personal property, and are kind of up to the player to either be sold to or acquired or bribed to get, or someone just hands them out willy-nilly to on, say, you're joining as a new player, and the mayor sees that, hey, this new player needs a property inside the town, or they can place these out preset what the plots are and then sell the properties as is and have laws to prevent unclaiming, to kind of be able to structuralize a town more, and do all kinds of interesting things to them.
So we got about 5 minutes left. Why don't we show the country?
Yeah.
Here we go. So here we're showing the reveal style. So when you place one of these town foundations, it's going to be hidden until you found it, just to make it like a special event for everybody. So here you can see on the town, it has this additional tab for member towns. So in order for a country to be founded, it needs to have a certain number of member towns. So these towns will have to apply to join before you can found it. So it takes a little bit of just communication and getting these towns on board. They would perform a civic action to apply to join. And then once you have that and there's enough citizens across all those towns, I think looks like you have some debug numbers in here for now.
Yeah.
But usually you'll need more citizens. You'll need a couple towns, probably 2 or 3, probably 2. And then, a certain number of citizens. And then you'll need some kind of level of culture. So culture can actually, you can't reach country level until you've got enough culture in all your towns. And then you would go ahead and start the constitution. Once those requirements are met,
I can
you
approve this.
ratify it, just like the town.
We've got 2 towns that are in member town tab. Can you see that as non-elected into it? Yeah. So these are in here.
Yeah.
I can.
You replied.
I'll swap over to me quickly here. So this is how it's looking for the owner of the object or whoever is responsible in kind of creating this. And you have 2 different towns here. And these are applied. And then if they have ran their elections and they passed locally in their different towns, since that's a constitutional election thing, we can approve them. And then they get included into this town or this country. And they are then listed under here, so they now show up as valid member towns or valid member citizens. And I just need to actually claim the property for the whole thing. I could switch over to you there. I need to find a property tool, or did you?
We should show the cool reveal animation if we can too.
Yeah, I need to claim the room for it, but I don't have a claim tool.
Let's just force enable it just to show it.
That's actually a good thing. So one of the things that we added as we're building this up, we realized that we needed a bit more convenient way to kind of test things and override certain settings or override certain requirements. So this is something that kind of blows requirements out of the water in terms of debugging. I think I'll show it as I'm running the commands here. Or actually,
yeah.
You know what? Let's keep it on you, since you see the reveal. I just see the UI, which is /force enable, which then removes all kinds of requirements. Ooh. And enables the
reveal.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, so big event with lots of people, multiple towns, cause for celebration.
Can you access that UI now that it's enabled through admin? I think so. Yeah,
it looks like it.
So when you do this, it supersedes everything and it gives you kind of a UI options for interacting with the town.
Yeah, so this is you can use this to set up scenarios. So maybe you want to set up a bunch of towns and a bunch of countries and kind of have a custom set of settlements before players enter. So you have that option now that admins can easily kind of design this whole system in advance if they want to run a particular kind of server. So tons of stuff we want to support, just letting people really go crazy with the system and do all kinds of interesting stuff. And I know Dennis has been cooking up some cool stuff for White Tiger that's going to be using kind of a custom setup too. So yeah, it should be all kinds of new servers happening.
Yeah, I can go through this a little bit just over the time. So when you click the admin button, it pops up there we go. I'm in focus. It pops up this list of member towns that are valid that you can include. So you just select it, submit it, and bam, it's inside member towns without elections or anything kind of forced grabbing people in here. And this also allows you to kind of kick them out and kind of arrange them as you need without kind of fumbling through different kind of hoops or elections or requirements of different areas and different objects. And this is the same thing for citizens as well. You can add individual citizens to this. So it's just a great tool for admins to handle it. And with that done, let's call it alter state. We'll put a dash in there. So this also allows you to change out the influence color when you're founding a town. And you can do kind of mismatch here with how you want the colors on the map to be representing. And then I still haven't ratified it. So ratification here works the same way as towns, as the previous capital. You create the draft as John showed you. You agree on the draft. Once it's done, it pops up into this sidebar and says that, you know, it's a valid draft. You can start the election. This is also in the state where if you want to include more things into the same election, as referred to as bundling elections or bundling laws, this is also when you need to be doing it. So in this case, if we want to add a district for this, if we want to add the whole harbor area here, I'm just ballparking here because I'm not entirely sure how stable this is right now. So let's call it harbor and we'll submit that. Create a new draft. I wonder which map. This is something that we're still working on. It attached itself to John's town settlement and not the country. And this is something that we're still working on, trying to figure out where we want the threshold and how we want it to be assigned to the different layers of settlements.
Yeah, because they can actually overlap. Actually, if you want to switch to me, I can show that too once you're done.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start the elections for these two. And I'll hot run it with the admin command. So both of these have passed. And then that is now the constitution is ratified. It is active in terms of the influence radius. And now I can finalize the name. It says that it's valid and everything is all right. Pass that plaque and you found the country. And then it gives you a notification of who is involved and everything. Same thing as the towns. And I can switch over to John and he can show you the influence impact of these things.
Yeah, so here you can see, you know, we have different influence maps you can show. If you show the towns, it shows you the influence of these two towns that we've set up. And these are separate entities. But both of these towns are members of the country Otter State.
And I'm still tweaking and ballparking the values for how much the influence is. So I'm kind of like experimenting with how big a nation should be getting, which is difficult to balance towards the size of the world. So there might end up being some preset different config values for these things. To kind of fit where a larger map might need a larger radius for the different tiers versus a smaller map where we might want to be looking at having the same quantity of towns but still cover kind of the same percentage of the map.
So you can see it has a much bigger radius than towns do because it's a higher tier settlement. So the next tier up, which is federations, which we're not going to be showing right now, but federations could potentially cover the entire world, you know, like a United Nations type of thing. And you would have multiple countries joining for that. But yeah, so you have these different layers of like towns, scale up to countries, scale up to federations, and they overlap. So you can see down here, it shows you at this point, it's the town, John K-Tropolis, and it's the country Otter State. And those might have different, different laws that are kind of overacting. It will show you that in the status too of which laws are active at whatever location you're at. So yeah, I think we should wrap it up in about an hour.
Yeah. one last little thing. We showed off the government tab there, or the government UI. Now that we have a country, we can show how that actually changed out the settlements in the world.
Yes.
Kind of positioned towards each other. Or it.
Do we have the structure working yet? Oh, that's not rendering yet.
It's showing for me.
Oh, is it? Okay. Why don't you demo it on yours?
Yeah, I'll switch it over to me. So here, this will be automatically populated based on which tier levels and how these are corroborated towards each other, or which settlements is a child settlement to another one. And this will be kind of growing as you have more towns or more countries involved, being different kind of layered, and this will be automatically populated. So this will be something that organically grows as the server expands and as you add more towns and layers to it. There was 2 questions that kind of relevant to influence. One being, what's preventing a town and settlement from expanding its influence to cover an entire, unique biome, preventing the rest of the server from using it? I think the answer is nothing, really.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of want that to happen. Like, you imagine, you see this in like real life of like, there's some countries that just have amazing oil supplies, and then you have to like deal with them, and that kind of sucks sometimes because their governments suck. So I think it's kind of cool that you get those effects. And then if it really becomes an intractable problem, you could have the rest of the server could do a culture war to kind of absorb that town and change its government. So that's the kind of release valve for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll definitely see like rogue towns, even rogue countries doing things that are like against the rest of the world. And I think that'll make for some really interesting challenges of how to combat that. And I was really, wanted to make sure that we have ways to combat that, so you're not like totally helpless. That's why I added the culture war system to start it off.
Yeah, and that annexation system has the same kind of settlement on-off flag, similar to how the government overthrowing is set up now. So you can disable it if that's something you absolutely don't want to have enabled. But in most scenarios, it's intended to be at a level where you really have to work together as a server to combat these different things. You're not just gonna have like a group of 4 people bullying 2 others to just suppress them completely. But that's also where we're hoping to get a lot of feedback in terms of balance through the playtest, but also post-release. In this regard as well.
We're gonna do a couple playtests for this, and I expect we'll come up with all kinds of changes during these playtests. So we'll do like a private one. We'll probably do a more public one too before we finally release. And we'll always have the old system available too, so people will have that option. But yeah, everybody in here, it'd be great to have you join these playtests when they come up and just get more feedback. This is a system that it's the very beginnings of, especially the culture system, that are going to grow into just like amazing parts of the game. So we have lots of plans for them. But yeah, it should be a really big, exciting change, and I think we'll bring a lot of the cool features of Eco, like government, to a lot more of the players. So can't wait to get it out there.
Yeah, I think we got most of the questions answered, and like I said, we'll have a follow-up with culture and some of the other more in-depth details into some of these specific branches as we go through the playtest. We'll try to keep these streams up because I enjoy doing them. I think everyone enjoys having the resource available. Yeah, I think that's it for our first on-hands settlement stream. Been awesome to get this out.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing your guys' feedback, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming on stream here, so we can have you in person and
oh yeah, love it.
Have you talk about these things.
Such great questions too.
Yeah, so thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. See you guys.